So, as you probably know by now, we recently had former President Trump and Elon Musk have a live discussion on the X platform, highlighting a few topics. And in this video, I want to go ahead and discuss what are some of the potential ramifications in regards to Tesla stock following this recent interview. Now, if you're familiar with this channel, then you know that we often like to go ahead and talk about the broader market trends, and oftentimes some, securities in silos such as Tesla stock. For example, Tesla stock, we did see a big spike for today. Now, this spike wasn't really attributed to this recent interview. We'll go ahead and touch on what are the reasons why we saw not only Tesla spike up, but pretty much the broader markets like the S&P 500. It was really due to some macro events that unfolded for today, but we'll go ahead and cover that later on in this video. So if you're interested to kind of having a bit of a market update of what's taking place, I highly suggest you guys watch this video in its entirety. But going back to what we had recently, right? We had Elon Musk and Trump have this interview. Now, I suggest if you haven't listened to it, definitely check it out, even if you're not a fan of any of these individuals, simply because I often state that it's always good to get the other side of the story, get a different perspective, and kind of a good, reason why is so that you're a bit more grounded. For example, we're looking at the Wall Street Journal, and we see that the Wall Street Journal just mentioned that Trump and Elon Musk had a discussion on the X platform. They just said it normally, right? Now, we know that the Wall Street Journal is a little bit more right-leaning, and so they're likely to talk about some of the positives. Now, if you go to another media publication like the New York Times, you'll see that the title says, "After glitchy start, 2-hour ramble, Musk and Trump talk." Now, they're kind of suggesting that they rambled for 2 hours, and they kind of highlight the weakness that the X platform had in the beginning of the interview, where it kind of wasn't working, right? So they're kind of having kind of this negative outlook, or it's, in this article, and that's why I often say you want to see both sides and kind of get a better view of what's taking place, because if you're just on one side of the spectrum, you'll only hear the negatives. If you're on the other side, you'll only hear the positives. And so we'll go ahead and touch on a couple of things, but really the main focus is the ramifications in regards to Tesla stock. Now, they did cover lots of different topics. They talked about the assassination attempt and, the security in regards to Trump and immigration policy, energy and climate change, the U.S. economy and government spending, global and national security. And so it was a wide spectrum of conversations. However, what I want to talk about is how this impacts Tesla. Now, from a, brand perspective, we know that Tesla kind of had this endorsement by Trump, and that could be seen as a positive, right? Because Trump directly praised Tesla, saying, "You do make a great product." Now, we recently had Trump get actually a Cybertruck from Aiden Ross, which is a streamer, and so we've known that he's gotten to at least try some of the Tesla products out there. But this is a kind of public endorsement from a federal or a former president, which could have a positive impact. Now, that is debatable, as we know that Elon Musk historically has been more of a moderate that leaned towards the left. And so recently, in the last couple of years, where he's been taking a stance towards the right, a lot of people saying it's kind of cannibalizing the Tesla brand. And I've talked about that in my last video, and some of the comments mentioned that yes, it does kind of cannibalize the Tesla brand. But they also talked about energy and technology. Now, one interesting thing that did come out after this recent interview is we had here, and we have Sawyer Merritt kind of talk about this, highlighting the news, that the UAW filed federal labor charges against Trump and Elon Musk due to something that Trump said during the live space that they had on X. And this is a quote from the UAW saying, "At one point, Trump and Musk were talking about workers who go on strike for better wages. Trump said, if workers go on strike and you say, that's okay, you're all gone. You're all gone. So everyone is gone." Kind of just alluding towards like a threat that, hey, if you have people going on strike, you're likely to just get fired. And of course, that's not something that the UAW is very fond of. As we know, the UAW is very pro going on strike for better wages. And so how does this kind of tie into Tesla? Well, we know that in the last couple of years, this current administration, which I know Kamala's running, but it's, the Biden administration at this moment, was kind of weaponizing the UAW in a sense by threatening, saying that Tesla needs to get unionized. And we've talked about that in previous videos on how Tesla unionizing might not be best for the employees or even, the actual stock itself, right? And so, again, we're not going to go ahead and delve into that, but pretty interesting. So we had them kind of, call out these federal labor charges against Trump and Elon. And Elon actually responded saying the last two UAW presidents went to prison for bribery and corruption. And based on recent news, it looks like this guy will join them, which I think actually responded to this saying that Elon Musk is in battle mode because it seems like Elon Musk does not care about the heat being on him. I think, personally, from my just perspective or what I see, I think Elon Musk shouldn't be as vocal towards just leaning to the right. And that's not because I'm not a fan of the right. Again, I do consider myself a moderate, but I think it lands him in a lot of trouble, and it kind of leads to this weaponization of a lot of organizations going against Elon, and that just means a lot of legal battles and a lot of distractions from actually making a successful company, which I'm not saying that Tesla isn't successful. Of course it is, but it hasn't been doing too well in the last 3 years. And we know in the last couple of years, right? First of all, let's go to a weekly time frame. We see that Tesla's been kind of on this primary trend downwards. You could argue that in the last couple of years, it's been sideways as we swing up, swing down, swing up, swing down. But ultimately, we haven't broken new highs in 3 years. And in the last 3 years, we've seen Elon Musk get very vocal. And that's something that could be deteriorating the Tesla brand and also cause just a lot of problems. So that's just something that I wanted to highlight. Now, what did we get today from a macro perspective that was pretty positive? So we actually had the small business optimism actually rise up today. This is the highest it's risen since 2022. And so that's actually a pretty positive thing that we're seeing here. And as well, we also had the producer price index, so not to confuse or be confused with the CPI report, the consumer price index. It's the wholesale inflation, and it's showing that it's actually it was a bit hot, but it's still on track, and it's likely that the Federal Reserve is to cut in this next meeting in September. And so due to that, we actually saw Tesla pretty much have a nice move up. If we actually look at the companies within the Magnificent Seven, Nvidia was the biggest gainer, Tesla was the second, Meta did okay, Amazon did okay, they all did okay. The entire market did pretty well. It looks like Google and After Hours is pushing down, but pretty much the two winners today was Nvidia and Tesla. Now, one interesting thing with Tesla, we talked about how Tesla was likely to bounce simply because there was a lot more volume relative to price, and so any positive announcements or catalysts could help propel Tesla stock upwards as there's little activity here. And so if there's just more buying pressure taking place where there's little activity relative to price, well, that could easily push the stock upwards. I talk about this often on my channel and also within the Push and Profit private group, which is the first link in the description down below if you're interested. But ultimately, this was something that we called out, and we're still monitoring Tesla. Again, I still have exposure to Tesla in my long-term portfolio. I haven't done any selling, so I'll go ahead and update you guys. But let's go ahead and actually talk about SPY, because SPY, and I say SPY, but this is the S&P 500, ticker symbol SPY, the S&P 500 Index ETF. SPY just broke a major level that I just discussed in our private briefing for those within the Push and Profit private group. As I highlighted in a couple of days ago, how we wanted to see the market close above 539.95 cents, simply because that was a previous support in the past, and we wanted to see it break above it. And not just because we want to see just little lines get crossed on the chart, right? I often say technical analysis is just one data point, but it's putting the pieces together, right? You see a lot of people on YouTube or on X just say, oh, hey, if it crosses this line, it's going to do this and do that, and, it's going to do a whatever magic pattern, right? And again, I'm not trying to discredit technical analysis. I use it in the analysis that I do, but you have to kind of layer it with what's taking place. And so what did we recently see, right? Well, we witnessed the market heading towards this correctional territory. It was nearly below 10%. And we saw a lot of volatility. We saw retail sell. And what we saw was institutions, right? I actually highlighted this in my community post, how JP Morgan mentioned that a lot of institutions, right? So hedge funds, mutual funds, all the big money, the smart money, they actually bought into weakness, right? So while everyone was panicking and selling and being a paper hand pansy, the smart money was actually buying. Now, the reason why I said we wanted to see the S&P 500 close above this area is because unlike retail, who sells in strength, buys in strength, institutions, they sell in strength. And so I may have confused someone, so let me just repeat this, right? So while retail was selling into weakness, institutions were buying into weakness, and institutions sell into strength. And we've seen some recent strength. And so right now we're probably in the midst of a lot of institutions just slowly scaling off as they just recently made a large purchase and things are going this way. And so we wanted to see that close above here, as that's pretty significant, that even though they were slightly unloading, selling into strength, that the market momentum is still there. Now going back to Tesla, right, because I didn't want to deviate too far from the S&P 500. One area that we're looking for in regards to Tesla is kind of right around this area right over here. And I often say that, hey, if you can't really see a pattern very well or what's going on with the price action, you want to go ahead and toggle into different charts, right? You have Henkaiashi charts, which average the actual price action down, but I actually like using line charts, and this is something that Charles H. Dow, who is the founder of technical analysis, often only used because it shows the closing prices, and it helps you kind of identify areas a bit better, because at the end of the day, the closing price is what's more important, as that shows us where buyers and sellers actually settled. And so we want to see Tesla, kind of close above the 216, and once again try to get close to retesting this area at 250. Now we'll have all eyes on Tesla right over here, but what's going to be the main driver for Tesla? It's not going to be what was said in this interview. It's going to be what happens tomorrow, which is the CPI report, which I expect to still show that inflation, the trend of inflation, is falling down like a rock. And I always like to specify it's the trend of inflation, not just inflation itself, because if I say inflation is falling, that's actually incorrect. Inflation is actually up throughout the years, but the trend of it going up is slowing down, and people they often get confused. They're like, but the groceries are still expensive at the store, and it's like, I know, it's the trend of it that's slowing down. And so ultimately, tomorrow is going to be the CPI report, and positive CPI reports tend to have the market react positively. And so hopefully Tesla can get back to that 214 area. It's likely to test it, and we'll see if it breaks above. Now, I did share some recent trade ideas for those within the Push and Profit private group that are performing pretty well. I won't highlight them in this video. If you're interested in getting my daily briefings and also getting my updates for what stocks I'm looking to buy or sell, make sure to check out the first link in the description below. There's an exclusive coupon code just for this video alone. So check that out. And with that said, let me know in the comment section down below, what are your thoughts on Tesla moving forward? And with that said, hopefully you guys found some value, and I'll see you guys on this next video right over here. Take care, guys.